No weight class. Before we had all of these weight divisions, UFC originally didn't have a weight class in the first place because Dana White intended to create a fighting championship for everyone, regardless of any size or weight. Take UFC 1 fight as an example, which is the first fight ever in UFC history. The small guy is Gerard Gordeau, a savate fighter weighing 216 pounds, going against the big guy, who is a sumo wrestler named Taylor Tully, who weighs over 410 pounds. The result was the big guy got kicked once, and he's done. As you can see, this fight is very brutal because there is no mouthguard or even fighting gloves. In fact, there's no rule, scorecard, or even time limit as well. So you can potentially unalive someone in such a fight. That's why UFC started creating weight classes and added some rules because of this. So they divided the weight class into heavyweight and lightweight divisions at that time. Strawweight. Strawweight is the lightest weight class in the UFC, set at 115 pounds, and it is exclusive only to female fighters. It has produced some of the fiercest fights despite being the smallest division. This division has notable fighters such as Zhang Weili, the first Chinese UFC champion, and also Shi Ming, who went viral for knocking out her opponent with a powerful kick. What's interesting is she's a UFC strawweight fighter who works as a doctor as well, and her parents in China don't even know that she's a UFC fighter. Flyweight. The flyweight division is set at 125 pounds and is the first weight class that features male and female fighters. Unlike heavier divisions where raw power and strength play a bigger role, flyweight bouts emphasize technique, agility, and precision. But here's the real thing. Do you know most of these guys from this weight class? Well, probably not, no offense. But that's because they're not that iconic or great yet, except for one guy, and that is Demetrius Johnson, or Mighty Mouse, who is widely regarded as one of the greatest mixed martial artists of all time. He's been the UFC flyweight champ for nearly 6 years, setting a record with 11 consecutive title defenses in UFC. He is known for his well-rounded game, including clinch work, submissions, and intelligent striking. But then, this weight division became less prestigious because DJ retired from UFC and went to one championship. A solid proof is his fight with Muay Thai GOAT Rodtang. And the sad reason why he retired was because he's underpaid and underappreciated in UFC. Imagine someone like CM Punk from WWE who moved to UFC and got $500,000 in his second fight because he's popular despite not having any MMA background. And UFC also traded Mighty Mouse for some Ben Askren guy from one championship. And of course, he's not GOAT like DJ. Well, I guess it's all because Mighty Mouse is not some trash-talking guy. That's why Dana White threw him away, thus making this division feels empty without him. Bantamweight. The Bantamweight division is set at 135 pounds and is one of the most dramatic and competitive divisions in MMA. For example, the dominant figure in Bantamweight history is Dominick Cruz, who revolutionized the division with his unorthodox footwork and defensive movement. He held the title for years and was known for being nearly impossible to hit cleanly. However, injuries derailed his reign, and he said he wanted to retire. Another guy we got is TJ Dillashaw, who became a two-time champion, though his legacy was tarnished after a doping scandal. Aljamain Sterling also left a mark by becoming champion in a controversial way, winning the belt because Peter Yan landed an illegal knee, so he got disqualified. And now we have the young prospect Umar Nurmagomedov, the cousin of Khabib Nurmagomedov, and we all know the Dagestani fighters are something else. In fact, he was once undefeated. But then he got humbled by Merab Dvalishvili. This guy possesses relentless cardio and also got the highest takedown rates in UFC history, even breaking the record of GSP, one of the GOATs in UFC. I guess just because you got Nurmagomedov in your name, it doesn't mean you're Khabib. Featherweight. The featherweight division is set at 145 pounds and also the highest weight class that features women. This division has some popular names like Alexander Volkanovski and also Ilia Topuria, the current champ. But the most memorable thing from this division is Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor, which helped the UFC become famous like today. So Jose Aldo is the original king of the division. The guy was unstoppable for nearly a decade and kept defending his belt multiple times. Then came Conor McGregor, who changed everything with his left hand. In 2015, he knocked out Aldo in just 13 seconds. That's the fastest title fight KO in UFC history. That moment skyrocketed him to superstardom and made the UFC featherweight division one of the most talked about in the sport. By the way, this is where the seed of arrogance of McGregor started to grow. Lightweight. The lightweight division is set at 155 pounds, and the one division that made UFC became big like today. The reason is Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is the biggest legend of the division and arguably of all UFC fighters. Khabib retired undefeated with his 29-0 record by dominating everyone, especially Conor McGregor. And what made Khabib even more awesome was he's just some guy from Dagestan. So almost everybody underestimated him at first.
Matchups, I'll give you that.
Khabib's got a lot of holes in his game.
Yeah,
he sleeps Khabib. He stands a much better chance versus Khabib than.
Like Conor's just got that left hand. He's fast. He's gonna.
Conor McGregor might whip his ass.
That time, only famous figures like Zlatan, who's not an expert in the MMA world, made an objective analysis on Khabib.
I think Khabib will win because if he catch you, he doesn't let you lose. He will make you suffer in the ring, and you don't only suffer, he makes you give up in a way that looks very bad.
And of course, the biggest event in all UFC was Khabib beating him up and choking him, and then jumping into the crowd to fight McGregor's team, which causes a huge riot. Even Mike Tyson said in his tweet that Khabib's riot is even crazier than his earbite riot. After Khabib's retirement, we got Islam Makhachev, the dominant and best pound-for-pound UFC fighter, who is Khabib's legacy and friend as well. And there are also famous names like Charles Oliveira, the submission machine with the most finishes in UFC history. Then we got Justin Gaethje, an all-action brawler who brings absolute wars every time he steps into the cage. And of course, Tony Ferguson, with his unique characteristics, a bit too unique sometimes. Nevertheless, they are all awesome. Oh yeah, talking about awesome, I gotta show you all this awesome UFC merch. And some nice equipment as well. Perfect for a home gym or sparring. I'll put the link in the description just in case you want to check it out. Welterweight. The welterweight division is set at 170 pounds and is the first division with more than 10 pounds of weight increase. The first thing I remember from this weight class is Ben Askren, the guy UFC traded for Mighty Mouse, remember? The fight was unique because it ended in just 5 seconds, which is the world's fastest KO in UFC fight. We also have Georges St-Pierre, who is one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time from this division. The guy was a complete fighter like Islam Makhachev, but greater. He dominated for years, barely ever losing rounds, but he retired in 2019 due to bowel inflammation. So what we have now is Belal Muhammad, Palestinian-American welterweight champ. However, people hate him so much despite being the champ. While I know we got some Islamophobia issues in some online MMA communities, the main reason is likely due to people thinking Belal is a boring fighter because he won most of his fights through unanimous decision. And even though he fights clean, gives humanitarian aid, is a devout Muslim, and never has controversial issues like other fighters, people still don't care and proceed to attack him personally. But what do you think about him? Oh, last but not least, Khamzat Chimaev. This undefeated wolf came from this division and smashed a lot of fighters. Then he went up to the middleweight division and also smashed Robert Whittaker with his freestyle wrestling and broke his jaw and teeth through submission. Middleweight. The middleweight division is set at 185 pounds. This division has had some of the most dominant champions and biggest rivalries in MMA history. The first one is Anderson "Spider" Silva. He's one of the all-time greatest UFC fighters coming from this weight division. He can easily dodge the opponent's attack and end the fight quickly. He held the belt for almost 7 years. That's the longest title reign in UFC history, but he retired in 2020. Then came Israel Adesanya, the last style bender, who is an anime weeb guy and was the king of middleweight for years, until he ran into his old kickboxing rival, Alex Pereira, who knocked him out and took his belt. But Izzy got his revenge in the rematch with a brutal knockout of his own, making their rivalry one of the most exciting in recent memory. An honorable mention goes to Yoel Romero, who was a freak athlete. He could eat hard kicks to his face and still feel all right. It's as if his soul left his body and came back again. Light heavyweight. The light heavyweight division is set at 205 pounds and is the second highest weight division in the UFC. We got Jiri Prochazka in this weight class. He's a wild and unpredictable striker, became champ, but had to vacate due to injury. Then there's Alex Pereira, a former middleweight who moved up and quickly became the champ with his insane kickboxing power. And his kick and left-hand attack are so painful. But the most notable fighter in light heavyweight history of all time is Jon Jones. I know he's in heavyweight now, but he was the youngest UFC champ ever at 23 years old when he entered this division. He has insane reach and elite striking, and also formidable wrestling, though he's controversial since he likes to poke someone's eyes. Oh yeah, there's also Daniel Cormier, Jon's arch enemy. He's a beast in wrestling, a double champ, and his homie Khabib said he cannot even submit him. Heavyweight. The heavyweight division is set at 265 pounds. This is the maximum weight and the highest division. We got Francis Ngannou, who has the hardest recorded punch in the world. Getting punched by this guy means you're finished. By the way, he's doing a boxing career as well. And then we have Tom Aspinall, who is actually a good fighter and chill guy as well. He holds Jon Jones's belt, which is what we call interim champion. So he must challenge Jon Jones in order to be the real owner of the belt. The problem is Jon Jones is not very active as a fighter. I mean, take a look at the time gaps from each of his fights, and he also has several controversies other than poking someone's eyes. For example, he said in his live Instagram at 3 a.m. that he wants to kill someone. He's also involved in drug usage and wants to kill the officer as well. So yeah, this GOAT is troublesome in real life. Kind of reminds me of Mike Tyson's life story that is full of dynamics, which I already explained thoroughly in this video. So don't forget to watch it, okay?